What's up, guys? Welcome back. It is time for a TV show review. Every week we're going to be doing a TV show review or a movie review. The movie review we did last was Bird Box. So this time we're doing a TV show, and it's the TV show You from Netflix. Now, I know this show is getting a lot of discussion on Twitter. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about it in person, but it's a good show. I really like it, and I'm going to go through it. If you have not seen this show, do not watch this video because I'm going to spoil most of it for you. If you haven't seen it and you want to watch the video and you still want to watch it, the show itself, go for it. Do whatever you got to do, but I'm just letting you know there's going to be spoilers in here. So anyway, before we start, don't forget to hit the little button down here, the little subscribe button, that little Daily D podcast logo. And also don't forget to check out the other videos that I do, card tricks, guitar tutorials, and I'm going to be doing a Super Bowl podcast next week coming up to preview the Patriots and the Rams. So let's get into the show, and here it goes. So basically what the show is about, it's about love and obsession and stalking. This used to be, or I think it was initially a Lifetime show, and then Netflix picked it up or something like that. So as soon as you say Lifetime, you know this is going to be some crazy shit going on. The characters, let's meet them. So there's basically three main characters that you have to know in this show. Guinevere Beck, who's played by Elizabeth Allaile, who is a aspiring writer. She's a graduate from New York school, some college in New York. Her best friend Peach, who's just rich AF basically, and Joe, who is the stalker guy and the manager of where else but the bookstore that Peach and Beck always go to, because why wouldn't he just work at Starbucks and leave them alone? But he doesn't do that. They're the three main characters that you have to worry about in this show. There's obviously some other characters that provide comic relief and that have other storylines in the show, which I'm going to get into now. So the storylines in the show are Joe and Beck. They have like this little fling. They date. He's obsessed with her, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into it. There's Beck and Peach, who are best friends. They have a little battle out, not physical fight or anything, but anyway. Peach and Joe, they actually do physically fight in the show. And Joe and Paco. Paco is Joe's neighbor, he's kind of like his guidance guy or mentor, because Paco's dad is an abusive drunk, and Joe kind of like takes him under his wing and shows him all these cool books, and it's like, hey, read these books, it'll teach you a lot. Paco's mom is a druggie, and Paco's got a tough life. Kind of starts off, it does start off with Joe and Beck meeting, and they meet in the train station, and Beck drops her phone, and Joe takes her phone and ultimately stalks her. He takes her phone, she gets a new one, but don't you need like the same SIM card or something to see all that's going on her new phone? But I don't know. But anyway, he's able to read all of her text messages, go on her Facebook, and basically find everything about this girl. Stalks her. They fall in love naturally, and they date, and she doesn't know that he's being stalked until the very end, of course. Beck's trying to become a writer, and she's struggling and wants to be the greatest writer of all time. And then Peach, her best friend, sets up like this meeting with her writer review critic guy for Beck to meet him and be like, hey, can you read my novel? And then he does, and he like blows smoke up her ass and says, yeah, it's the greatest novel I've ever read. Turns out he's a fraud, and he's just trying to grope her up and feel her up and basically have sex with her. When Peach sets this meeting up with Beck with this writer guy, she overhears Peach talking to this writer guy and saying, hey, just talk to her nice, but let her down easy. Joe hears this and then eventually tells Beck, like, hey, Peach is a fraud, basically. Anyway, Joe steals her laptop because he figures, why is Peach doing this to her? So he naturally just, let me steal her laptop because that'll solve everything. And then he kind of ends up stalking her. If you read between the lines, it's Joe wants Beck to himself. He finds on her laptop, she has all these pictures of Beck, like sleeping and undressing and like staring at the window, some just weird stuff. He concludes that she's obsessed with her and is in love with her. And not like, I love you, you're my best friend, like, I love you, let's move to Paris together type of stuff. And then Peach is like to Beck, like, hey, Joe's not all this in a bag of chips, basically. He's kind of a weird dude. And Joe and Peach kind of like start this obsession battle. And they know it deep down in their mind, but they don't actually confront each other about it until it gets way too late and gets way too violent. Peach and Beck have a fight about Joe, and then later that night, Peach fakes an overdose. This is where the show kind of takes a weird, far-fetched type of turn for me. She takes enough pills to seem like she's overdosing, but she's not overdosing. And Joe figures this out because he's like a science guy. I don't know. He just knows it. She calls Beck and's like, like, I love you. And she sounds like really disoriented. And then they go over to her house. And what happens is she has like this notebook of all these pills and stuff written out. And Joe's reading it. He's like, wait a minute. That's enough to seem overdosed, but not be overdosed. Ooh. He doesn't tell Beck right away. He kind of indirectly says it. But Beck like has this home starter kit of rehab, like home rehab. Just I know what to do. I got it. And you have to infer like, well, if she knows how to do this, this is not the first time Peach has done this. Probably, it's like, oh, go grab the thing from the sink, and I'm gonna figure this out. So Joe grabs the stuff, but he purposely forgets things because he knows Peach is BSing this. There's no way she's overdosing. Actually, this is the part where it's like, okay, come on. Beck just like picks her up and like walks her to bed. That's it. And then like Joe and her have an argument. They all have an argument like, oh, I think we should get her to a hospital. And Joe is correct in saying, hey, we should get her to a hospital because if she's overdosing, making her throw up and putting her to bed probably isn't enough. Let's send her to a hospital. But Beck's like, no, we're not going to send her to a hospital. And then Peach just gets up and walks around like, yeah, I don't need to go. And then they just put her to bed. Like, if your best, like, I know if my best friend overdosed and I thought he overdosed, I'd be like, dude, you're going to the hospital. But I get what they were trying to do. And what they were trying to do is show how obsessed Peach really is and how, like, just the struggle battle between Joe and Peach. And then Joe's like, okay, now I'm going to really creep on this girl Peach to figure out what the hell is going on. So he starts jogging and running because Peach runs and they run the same trail now. And then eventually Joe takes a rock and smashes her over the head while she's running. He intends to kill her, but finds out later that he did not kill her. Peach recovers and then is back at her home, and then Joe stops over with flowers. But before he does that, this is where the story of Paco really starts to come in. So Paco, like I said, his dad is a drunk, his mom is a druggie, and Joe's like trying to tell Paco's mom, like, hey, you should probably leave that guy because he's a bad influence on you and on Paco, and it really affects him. And Joe sees Paco's dad and like confronts him, is like, hey, don't go in there, you shouldn't be there. They fight, and Joe gets his ass beat big time. But anyway, Peach comes in and sees Joe, and it's like, and she rightfully suspects him of smashing her over the head with a rock. She just knows this, and she's like, I don't want a male presence in my place because she's kind of fearful for her life now because she's like, a male had to do this. There's no way a girl would have done this. And then for a second, just a split second, you kind of feel bad for Joe. You're like, why is she being so mean to him? And then it comes back to you, and you're like, oh yeah, he's a total piece of shit. He leaves, and then Joe's like, then eventually tells Beck, like, hey, I think she's super obsessed with you because he sees plane tickets to Paris. And Peach reveals to Beck eventually that she wants to move to Paris with her because she's in love with her. Peach and Beck eventually go to Connecticut, and it's her Peach's like house or something, like, I don't know, beach house? Not beach house. I don't know. Vacation home, let's call it that. Joe obviously follows them because what else does he do? He's the manager of a bookstore. He doesn't have a job to do. He just goes and follows people. He breaks into the house, and then Beck like reveals to Peach, or I'm sorry, Peach reveals to Beck there that she's gonna move to Paris. They're all moving to Paris. Like, her and Peach are moving to Paris, and it's great. But she's like, just take the night, sleep on it. She invites her weird friend over who gives her like these pills to like relax, probably ecstasy. I don't know what it is. Joe's in the house the whole time now. So Beck and Peach are in this house in Connecticut. They go out on a girls' date. Here's the other part that doesn't make sense about this. He follows them there, and he's just lurking around the house. What is he doing? He's not like looking for anything. He's not gonna like. What is he gonna do? Show if he really wanted them to notice him, he would have just walked in the room and said, "Hey guys, I'm here." But he doesn't do that. He just lurks around the whole house and does nothing. Essentially, he just creeps around. And by the way, his stalker level is on like a 10 out of 5. He's incredible. However, as he says throughout the entire show, he does make mistakes. So he really has to go to the bathroom, and he decides to pee in this empty jar. And he leaves the jar right on a counter table, like a bookshelf type of thing, and leaves it there. The next morning, Beck wakes up and's like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm not going to Paris with you. I'm leaving. And Peach is like, why? I want you to come with me. And then Peach's hopes and dreams are crushed. Now, Joe's looking out the window at this exchange, and then Peach comes in the house, And oh yeah, she has a gun, but Joe has the gun now, obviously, because he's that good. So he has the gun. Peach finds him, smacks him over the head with something, knocks him out. Wakes up. They have like this little altercation, and then they actually fight. Not verbal fighting, physical fighting. They fight each other, and then like the camera pans up, and then you hear a gunshot, bang. It flashes to the suicide note that Joe wrote for Peach because he killed her. Crazy stuff. Like this dude is on his shit. He knows exactly what he's doing. So recap here: he kills Peach, bang, shoots her, and then he types up a suicide note on her laptop and leaves it right in the middle of the house. Displays evidence all over the place, like pills, this crazy sex toy. I don't know why he had put that there, but he did. And then he just flees the scene, and it's marked up as a suicide. It kind of flash forwards to the funeral, and then Beck and Joe are not together anymore. They are broken up, and Beck is seeing a therapist who is played by none other than John Stamos, of course, Uncle Jesse. Joe naturally finds out who this therapist is, and is like, I'm gonna go see the same guy because I feel like you're cheating on me. And while they're in therapy, they are still together, but then they eventually break up also while they're in therapy. So it's kind of like a time lapse type of thing, but it's easy to follow along if you watch the show. Eventually approaches Beck like, you're cheating on me with a therapist. And she's like, no, what are you talking about? No, I'm not. That's insane. He's like 50 years old. They break up. Beck's like, I'm done with you. You're insane. I'm done with you. That's enough. Then Joe eventually dates this girl, Karen. And he doesn't stalk her or anything. He just is normal with her. It's a kind of a character change. There's no drama involved with Karen. She's just like a normal person. Just like, hey, you want some dinner? Okay. Hey, you want to go to the movie? She's just like chill. She's probably a perfect person to actually date and have a relationship with, instead of Beck, because there's a lot of shit going on with Beck. Joe breaks up with Karen, and Karen's like all cool about it. She's like, all right, that's fine. And she's like, it just shows how mature she really is. He goes back to Beck, and then they fall back in love, of course. And it just seems like there's nothing really to worry about here. They're back together. They both love each other. There's no reason for him to stalk anymore. Yes, there is. There always is. He used to date this girl, Candace. Okay, Candace, you get flashbacks of her. It was kind of this crazy person, psycho. She was like a lead singer of a band, and he loves her and falls in love with her, and then she cheats on him, which is why Joe kind of gets crazy and stalkish because she cheats on him, and then he always thinks like every girl that I date now is going to cheat on me. It showed that he kills the person that she cheats on him with, like pushes him off a building, and then he dies. And then Candace kind of disappears, and you assume throughout this entire show that Joe killed her. Obviously, he's a stalker. He's insane. He killed her band manager, cheat lover. So he had to kill her. Beck kind of snoops around when they get back together, and she's like, well, who's this Candace chick? Thinks that she's still in the picture, and Joe's like, no, she's not here anymore. She's not around. She's moved. She's changed her name, and he pulls up her Instagram and all that. And then you think for a second, like, he definitely created all this. He created this page. He's posting pictures. That's what I thought, at least. Everything's great with Joe and Beck. They talk it out, which is mature for them now. They're not, like, actually creeping around each other. They're like, hey, Candace is nothing to worry about. Just like you adults do. You talk it out. However, Joe's like, hey, you're always checking your phone, Beck. What's going on? And Beck, like, beforehand, when Joe was kind of thinking, hey, you're cheating on me with the therapist, she was like, oh, it's my friend Emma Fox, I think that's her name, Emma Fox from school. Ping, ping, ping. And Joe's like, who's texting you? And she's like, oh, it's a text. And he's like, oh, Emma? And she's like, who? And now he's like, now stalk mode's back in play. His gear flips. He does a complete 180, and he's like, time to stalk again. She goes away to her house, and he's like, oh, there's an alarm at the store, which is BS. And he goes and tracks down the therapist because he naturally knows every move he makes and where he lives and the route that he takes home. He finds him, beats him up, pistol whips him because he has a gun. I think it's the gun. No, it's not the gun that. I don't know. He got a gun. Steals his phone while he has him at gunpoint. And he is looking through it, and he finds text messages from the therapist and Beck. And pictures that Beck sent him in like lingerie and like them having sex and like post-sex pictures. She was cheating on him with the therapist. And then you feel bad for Joe now, and you're like, oh, what a poor guy. And then for a second it comes back like, stop feeling bad for this guy. He's a loser. He confronts her about it, says, answer this question for me. Were you cheating on me with the therapist? And she's like, no. And then he like says, I know you were cheating on me with the therapist, something like that. And then she cries and like, oh, I was, and it was in a dark place. And then he just doesn't care about it all of a sudden. He's like, do you still love me? And she's like, yes. And then it just goes away. He's like, all right. But it's more emotional than that. But he just forgets it. And he's like, as long as you love me, I don't care what you do, basically. The next morning, Joe's out getting coffee and like donuts or something for Beck, and Paco knocks on the door, knock, 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 and he's returning a book to Joe, but Joe's not there. Beck's there, and he's like, "Hey, I have a book that I'm returning to Joe," and she's like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then he says something about a box. He says like, "Oh, it's something about Joe's secret box," and she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, he keeps a secret box above the toilet." Click. She goes in the bathroom. She's like, "Wait a second, I'm in the bathroom." Looks up, and there's a tile, it's not tile, but it's like a, the ceiling that you can push up and like reach in. It's not like that. So she's reaching around and she finds the box. She takes the box out, and there's all this crazy shit in there. There's teeth. There's her phone that she dropped from episode 1. There's pictures. There's lingerie. There's insane stuff in there. She goes and she's like freaking out, trying to gather up all the things because Joe came back, and she's like, I'm in the bathroom. Just let me go. I don't feel good. And she's picking up all the teeth that she dropped. That's right, she dropped teeth that were in a little glass jar, and the jar broke. She's putting the teeth back in the box. She forgets one tooth. Joe goes in the bathroom. She leaves the bathroom. He finds the one tooth, and he's like, oh shit, she found the box. Time to go insane. She's about to leave and like run away, basically, and he slams the door, grabs her, and then it pans to black. She wakes up in this box, and this box is in the bookstore. It's like in this secret lair in the bookstore that only Joe knows about, kind of. It's where all these first edition books are, and they keep them in this room temperature, like sealed room box, essentially, where Beck is now. And he just keeps her there, like she's a pet. He kind of reveals this stuff from his past, like he was kept in this box by the bookstore owner before him, and like told him to read all these first edition books, and like taught him all this crazy stuff about life. I don't know. It's like, really. He gives her like this typewriter, and he's like, hey, you can type your novels here. He gives her like a bucket to go to the bathroom in. Such a sweet gentleman. And he gives her like a blanket and a pillow, and he's the sweetest guy of all time. Locks her in this box. It's great. Eventually, Beck kind of accepts, like, all right, well, I'm in this box, and I'm just gonna make the most out of it. So she starts typing this thing, and she devises this plan in her head, like, I'm gonna type this novel, this fiction novel, but not really, about how her and Joe are going to escape, and they're going to basically like live happily ever after and get away from all this crazy stuff. And while in the box, Joe reveals, like, I killed Peach, and I'm crazy because I stole her phone. And she really sees like how insane this guy actually is. Just when you think he was about to like change, and like he forgave her for cheating, and it's like he got up and went to go get breakfast for her, and it's like, oh, he's finally being this guy that everybody wants him to be. And then he just says, I'm going to lock you in a box. She writes this novel, and then he comes back, and she's like, read this novel. And then he's flipping through it, and he realizes, and she says, like, so here's what we're going to do. Like, we can leave, we can pin everything on the therapist, and then we can just move away and live happily ever after. It's basically the gist of the novel. So, but her ultimate plan is to get the hell out of there and run away and call the police. So she eventually gets out, and she bangs, like beats him up or something, like hits him, and then she runs away, only to find that the door upstairs is locked from the outside. Damn. She sees Paco. Now Paco, let's rewind a little bit. Paco's dad comes back into the picture after he like left and then came back and left again, and his mom OD. Basically, like, she gets rid of Paco's dad. And I'm talking about Paco's mom here. I can't remember her name. Comes back into the picture, and Paco's like hits him with a bat, bang, bang, right over the head. And then Paco's dad is looking for Paco because Paco runs away because he didn't kill him, and he knows he's gonna get his ass beat, so he runs away naturally. And then Joe just is there, kills Paco's dad eventually, puts him in the trunk, tells Paco like, hey, you can't tell anybody about this, blah blah blah. I helped you out, help me out, don't say nothing. And then he goes back, and this is where Beck gives him the novel now. And then Paco eventually shows up to the thing, and this is where Beck is now at the top of the stairs, and Paco's looking for Joe. And Beck's like, Paco, let me out. uh, Joe has me and he's gonna kidnap me, and then like a thing goes off in Paco's head, like Joe, I have to help Joe. I can't betray Joe now because he helped me. And then he just runs away. Joe appears and grabs her, and then it pans to black, and then it forwards however many months, and it's revealed Beck dies. Beck is dead. She is killed by Joe. It does show that the novel that Beck wrote, Joe publishes, and it's the best-selling novel. It's like the greatest thing, and it's being displayed in the bookstore. How ironic! It just revealed that she is dead, but you have to assume like Joe killed her because he had her in a box and took her from the top of the stairs, and then we never saw her again. However, I do not believe this for one bit because the very end of the show, before it cuts out and you do not have any episodes more to watch and you're pissed about it, you see Candace, who you think the whole time is dead. You're like, Joe killed her. She's dead. She shows up at the bookstore, and you're like, Then it gets you thinking. And if you rewatch episode number 10, Joe says this one little line that stuck out to me as soon as he said it, and it didn't stick out for some other people that I talked to about the show. He says to Beck, I've never killed anybody that I've ever loved. Simple. That's what he says. And this is where she's grilling him about Candace. And she's like, did you kill him? And he's like, I never killed anybody that I loved. She shows up at the end, and you're like, wait a minute. He obviously loved her. She's not dead. That must have been true. Now you have to put together. He definitely loved Beck. I don't think he killed her. Plain and simple. Just with that one little line, I don't think that she is dead. Because here's the facts. You never see a body. You never see him kill her. But we do know that he's never killed anybody he's loved, and we do know that he loved Beck. I don't think she's dead. Where is she? I don't know. And that's it. That's the end of the show. That's the last episode. They have confirmed that there is a season 2 coming out. I don't know when it's coming out, but honestly, I can't wait for it. I didn't think I was gonna like the show at all. I thought it was gonna be too like dramatic and lifetimey, but boy, was I wrong. That was a great show to watch, and I definitely recommend it to people. Make sure you hit the little subscribe button right here and watch the other videos. Don't forget to watch the Bird Box review. If you have not seen Bird Box yet, go watch it, then watch my review. Or if you have seen it, go watch the review. A little link's going to pop up on the screen somewhere. Also doing card trick tutorials and guitar song tutorials. So watch it all, enjoy it, and be on the lookout for the next video that's going to be coming out. It is going to be another card trick tutorial, which will be coming out probably tomorrow or the day after. But keep an eye on that. It's this really cool effect that I'm going to be showing you. But again, recommend you watch it, subscribe, share it, like it. Peace.